Marky Mark.
How are you, mate?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Feeling good. Good start to my day, so I'm happy. Had my coffee. Onto
Very
my
nice.
water.
So who's on with us? Say hello, whoever's out there. I see we got a few people in the lobby there. So you and I have been kicking around for a while. You know, we really haven't tried. Hey Hans, how you doing? We really haven't tried to promote this thing at all. Hey Prashant, Lorenas. Partly because we didn't really care that much. This was taking a conversation you and I used to have anyway and just broadcasting it. So it didn't really matter to us how many people listened or didn't listen. Scott, Ken, how you guys doing? But we were thinking it really wouldn't take a whole lot of effort to grow this audience to be a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
Of course, then we have a higher level of responsibility to the audience. We've got our regulars here that come hang out and really don't care what we talk about. But if we get a bigger audience, there may be a little higher expectations. We'd have to think about that. Hey, Frank, I'm the RBC capital source. All right, I don't know what that means.
Steve is the RBC capital source. What is this?
I have no idea.
Hi, Lorenas. Welcome. And Prashant's joined us. Danny's joined us.
Royal Bank of Canada?
I know with Danny. Danny's probably out on his run at this time of morning in Queensland. Read the link. Read the link. He must have sent us a link. I haven't checked my messages off LinkedIn and stuff overnight.
Oh yeah, let me go over to WhatsApp here. He's probably dead on WhatsApp, right?
Okay, let me just see if it's if I got anything on WhatsApp there. Steve, today I have had Microsoft has asked me to attend some stuff up in Seattle, and it starts in half an hour. So are you sweet if we just make this a half-hour session today?
Yeah, but what are all these people going to do for that half hour? I mean, they set aside the time. They're going to have nothing to do. They're just going to sit there and stare at their screen. Well, they can rewatch the episode.
Or they could send us some suggestions around what they would like to see the show morph into in 2021.
Yep.
Right, because we're thinking now, right? We're going to run the show through to the end of November. We're going to take a couple of months off, January and December, as we have a break.
A little hiatus.
We want to come back in February, refreshed and ready to crank, and maybe some new programming, formatting, what we do. We might be able to even move this live stream to LinkedIn stream. Who knows where we'll be there as an option. But
he sent it to your LinkedIn.
I sent it to my LinkedIn. Let's have a look here. My LinkedIn.
Danny's suggesting maybe getting some random guests to cover specific topics. We did that with portals.
Yeah.
With Nick. Came in and talked a little bit. We had Gus on last time, really just to talk about nothing. But yeah, we can do that. It's funny because we actually started shortly after we launched this thing. It's funny because you and I were just talking shit all the time on our regular call. Suddenly it became like this public thing, and suddenly we started cleaning up our language and having a structured format, and it didn't seem to be taking off. So we both thought, well, in that case, the hell with it. We'll just relax and right back to our format.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, we started getting a little bit more of an audience. But I'm definitely open to changing the format around. I don't care. And Oakdale and project operations all the time. We're going to rename the show to Oakdale and Project Operations Show.
I love it.
With two guys that know nothing about either.
Well, that's changing. I'm actually getting into Project Oakdale. Well, I was just going to say, or did I say Dataflex? And I'm getting into Project Oakdale at the moment.
So we were on the pilot.
The connectors into Power Automate. The different connectors are, there's a couple now that, the connector for 5 minutes was known as the Dataflex connector. But of course, it's now, what is it? It's now the CDS connector, but like this instance. I forget the exact terminology.
Oh, yeah, right. The current
instance. Current environment. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, how difficult does that make it when you look at your connectors and they got the same icons? It starts off the same. You got to look for the three little ellipses to see that. Oh, hang on, it's the longer worded one, so that's the connector I want.
Yeah, I kind of learned a little bit of a lesson about some of these pilots. I mean, they seem like a great thing to be able to get on a pilot in your early days as they're fleshing something out. And I was on that with DataFlex before it was Oakdale.
Yeah.
And it was, the whole thing was a mess. The product was a mess. Everything about it was a mess. There were still, but that was the whole point of the pilot, was to have, a handful of us work with them to sort things out. But it got kind of boring, and you feel like you're kind of doing the grunt work. And then by the time it's actually ready to go GA and they've got something, you've already stopped paying attention. So I think it's when they invite you to a pilot, you should agree, but then don't bother attending until the end. let everybody else sort out all the crap and all the stupidity and all the mess, because otherwise you kind of lose your interest in the product before it even gets to a point where it's interesting. And now I guess, like you say, it's becoming more interesting, and I'm already bored of it.
Yeah.
But I got bored of it before it got interesting.
Okay, so I agree, and here's a great article which Patty likes the t-shirt. Here's Patty's t-shirt.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's actually one of my favorite t-shirts to wear, Patty, at the moment.
That means it smells bad.
No, I keep it clean. Frank sent through this link here, which is interesting. Microsoft Sales changes could help it challenge Salesforce in the cloud. And it came out yesterday. It's it's on CNBC, and it's around Microsoft making the Dynamics business its highest priority. And, now it exceeds 3 billion, which we discussed a couple of weeks ago. But interesting article, because I've heard this number now a bit lately, that within the next 3 years, if Microsoft continues their attention in the space, that it's really going to seriously disrupt the Salesforce business. Which, what I find interesting is when James Phillips came into the role, it was almost like overnight, Microsoft seemed to stop focusing publicly anyhow on Salesforce. You didn't hear it Microsoft internally always going, oh, Salesforce has this, we need to have this. All that kind of chatter, which a lot of it was coming, I think, from the US subsidiary, Microsoft subsidiary. So the field part was always going, oh, we're competing against Microsoft. They have this, Salesforce, they have this feature. Why don't we have that feature? And so the engineering team would turn around and go, quickly build that little frickin' tack-on feature so they could tick a box.
They were chasing their tail.
I think of chatter, Salesforce chatter, and when we got Yammer and how it was a fucking big deal. Now, who uses Yammer?
Yeah.
I don't even know why Yammer hasn't been fully folded into Teams properly.
I think the thing that Phillips did well was he kind of, I think he saw his predecessors chasing Salesforce and kind of the futility of that effort. And I think he said, you know what, fuck Salesforce. We're just going to do what we can do and build what we can build with our assets, and not worry about trying to copy Salesforce features. We'll just make new shit. And if Salesforce copies us, so be it. We don't care. And he just kind of put Salesforce in the background, and it's turned out to be a pretty smart move, right? That's what launched Flow. That's what launched PowerApps. That's launched all this stuff that has got to be giving Salesforce, some heartache, because frankly, it's given the first party app some heartache, because lots of customers now are thinking, I'm just going to build my own thing. I don't need to buy your first party.
Yeah.
Well, they're certainly thinking about that as opposed to buying Salesforce. Salesforce is even more expensive,
Yeah. So true. I think it's interesting. I like the comment there. Didn't someone say that Dynamics 365 is dead?
Yeah.
Nothing like a good controversy to get engagement, right? And a lot of chat this morning. A lot of chat coming through.
Frank's referring to some article with RBC Capital Markets about some major partner who said something to the analyst there. And it
sucks, that focus.
I was actually engaged by some analysts a couple of weeks ago
Mm-hmm.
for some opinions on, it was really about the ISV ecosystem and kind of Microsoft pros, cons, benefits, and they weren't really clear on who was paying them, and I didn't care because I'll talk to anybody, right? I don't give a shit. And they were paying me, so that was fine. And I had in the back of my mind that maybe it was probably Microsoft funding this because the questions were about Salesforce, ISV ecosystem, Microsoft's, and then it kind of got down to things like, so do you think the benefit of a partner being able to access their customer tenants is a worthwhile benefit to have included in that 10% rev share?
Yeah.
Like, all right, well, they already get that benefit. They get that just from being a partner. That's not so. So it's kind of interesting the questions they were asking, but I don't think any of that would have necessarily made it back to RBC Capital Markets because it was certainly ISV focused. But I haven't seen the article. Did he sent you a link on LinkedIn? Did you pop that?
I put the link up in the chat in the chat there.
Is that the link he was talking about?
That's the one that Frank was talking about.
Where are they referring to?
Oh, you need to read the whole thing. I haven't had a chance to read it yet. But I just thought, yeah, there's some interesting content in there. Will be worth a read. Andrew, yes, my weather station is rocking. It is. I mean, I try to pull focus on my camera there. I need to change the settings because I'm just looking out to the ocean, Pornite Islands out there. Jacques Cousteau's one of his top 5 dive sites in the world, and between there and here is this beautiful green pastures with a herd of Jersey cows, some 300 Jersey cows just walking into the paddock. I mean, life is tough, man, these days. Life is tough.
I see. We just mentioned Nick a few minutes ago. He's on there.
Yeah, Nick's there. And
those customers from Dynamics to Vanilla CDS. You betcha. You betcha. Nick, you should be using our Rapid Start to do it because it's free now. No reason not to.
Yeah. So just on Prashant's comment there, he's talking about a partner yesterday met has done a project module. Now, even before Microsoft started getting into the space, and I think they've kind of swung backwards and forwards of the pendulum because AX always had a project module from memory. And then what they did is they said, hey, let's build that on CDS. And if you remember, and I think I've got this right, they built it on CDS 1, right, which was a cluster, right? They quickly, 1 year in, realized.
The AX-based version of CDS.
Yeah, and then, of course, they took what was already with Dynamics and what we called XRM, hence Ready XRM still got that nomenclature in his handle. Mm-hmm. And they took that underlying database and said, hey, that's actually what CDS should be. But of course, this project module, I heavily used the first project module in my business, for consultants and that type of thing. We spent a lot of effort on it and, of course, found a lot of shortcomings. Now they've gone and oscillated and seem to have moved it back into the AX part of the world, which I assume it's still underpinned by CDS. I have a podcast coming out with around dual write in the coming weeks, and it's quite interesting that now I think pretty much by default all finance and operations, sorry, I've got to stop calling it AX, is going to be deployed with CDS because of these offload features or the dual write functionality and how they want it to be more extensible. By using CDS, it makes F&O so much more extensible and being able to tie it into other parts of the business.
I think that Microsoft, with their PSA motion, and frankly, with most of their first-party motions, they unnecessarily complicate what should be simple tasks.
Yeah.
I mean, we're making a business out of going the opposite extreme of oversimplifying things, but they're overcomplicating things. And I definitely think there is room in the middle for someone. He's talking about someone built a project module, selling it for 50K. I don't know what that is, but
what do you mean? What's 50K? 50,000 will be 50,000 Australian.
Yeah. But when he's talking about it being better than PSA, better in what way? Better in that it's something people can actually use and succeed with, whereas PSA, I mean, everything you want to do in PSA is five steps to accomplish. I mean, everything is just massively complex, and it's not just PSA. I mean, this is throughout the first party apps. It's like they've got what 8,000 people on the team building stuff, and they all feel compelled to have to build stuff, and they just keep building when they should have stopped.
Yeah.
And I don't know where they're getting their information of who wants what. And I know we're kind of seeing it through a narrow lens because of the customer segment we focus on.
Mm.
But on the other side of the coin, it was a $3 billion business. So obviously people are buying this shit.
Yeah.
Um,
Better in the UI, Power BI, see demand supply at Flick. See, that's I mean, I know one of the things that James Phillips, he talks about 5 by 5, 5 minutes deploy, 5 minutes for value, right? Is that what
wow.
that's
Wow.
the 5, right?
Yeah, 5 minutes to set up, 5 minutes to wow.
Yeah. And the thing is, there's some applications that's obviously not happening in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not there. And but I
To be
think
honest, you can't even do that with Rapid Start.
yeah. So
Yeah,
actually, just on the Rapid Start front, because a month ago when we were chatting, you had gone down this journey of creating the ISV Connect program, and a place where ISVs can talk off record, have have discussions, etc. And one of the things you learned through that process of setting up that site was that you used a whole bunch of free plugins that you quickly upgraded to the commercial versions because they were doing the commercial version offered so much value, right? And then you decided to turn around, blew my mind, and you decided to make Rapid Start, something you've been charging for some years, free of charge.
Yes.
What's happened?
Well, as I had hoped would happen, people are installing it at a much higher rate than they were when it was charged, and in all different kinds of companies now. Some of these companies in the past, even if it wasn't very expensive, the idea that there was a cost at all was a blocker.
Yeah.
Because they've got to go somewhere and get approval, they got to get budget allocated, get all this stuff. So by eliminating the cost, it kind of eliminated it opened it up for everybody. So we're seeing a lot of installs of that. And what I'd also hoped is we're getting lots of inquiries back from those customers saying, hey, is this something you can help us customize? Because, like I said before, we were making 10 times as much on customizing as we were on the recurring revenue. So when we eliminate the recurring revenue, I wanted to see the users jump.
Yeah.
Because ultimately they would need the help. And this part of the business where we were always making this money would just start shooting up. And we're starting to see that happen now. And so it's interesting. It's making me, I mean, we're also learning in this process of what it means to be free.
Yep.
We still have lots of people reaching out on a free app looking for help, assistance, guidance that they don't think it's necessarily something should be paid for. It's just like the kind of support you would expect, and that's being a challenge for us to kind of work through how we handle that.
Yeah.
Because the last thing you want to do is launch an app for free and have it end up becoming the boat anchor that sinks your whole boat. Danny, we actually never launched that sprint. We tried with a couple of customers the sprints idea, and it put too much pressure on the customer. What he's talking about, Mark, so we've got our blocks of hours model, and we tried this idea where, because one of the problems of the blocks of hours, the customer, there was no urgency from the customer to consume them.
Yep.
They would expire at some point in the future, but there was no urgency. So we thought instead, to create that urgency, because urgency keeps things going. As soon as urgency is lost, projects die. So we thought, well, let's do this. Let's create a different kind of a block of hours that is a weekly sprint. Starts on a Monday morning, wraps up on a Friday. We're going to put all this time in. But customers, at least the customers we were talking to, they didn't feel like they could get their shit together enough to hold up their side of that deal.
The deal, yeah.
Yeah, so they all ended up wanting to opt for the regular blocks of hours. So I think there's probably a scenario where that would work, but it would need some more tweaking.
Do you know what? I think even with your blocks of hours and creating urgency, is there an option, and you know, this is something that might need a bit of thought around creating, like having a role in your company, like a CSM, a customer success manager, that their job is to, you know, have a portfolio of customers, that they maintain a cadence of communication of, let's, you know, I wouldn't say be as crass as say, let's burn these hours, but let's, you know, let's have a look at one of the pain points in your business and let's automate it, or let's, you know, put it into the app that you have, or whatever it is, so that that constant consumption's going on. I see that Microsoft, you know, when they went to the SaaS model and everything in the cloud, they put in these roles, and the number of people in these roles in Microsoft now are massive, because what's happening is it's driving massive engagement into the business in a non-seller role. But of course, what are they doing?
Yeah.
Selling massively. They just don't have a sales target on them or anything like that. That's all, you know, go to the sales team for that. And of course, they're just vacuuming up all this business opportunity. So I'm wondering.
Yeah, definitely something to consider, because you know, people buy a block of hours having really no idea how far that will get them, whether that's going to be more than they need, nowhere near what they need. They don't really know. And we are hesitant to say, because these projects don't survive the first meeting before the scope's turned into something completely different. So you can't go hanging out there saying, oh yeah, 80 hours solve all your problems. You know, it's just not going to work. So they kind of go into this thing a little bit blind until we start working, and then they kind of get a feel once we're working of, you know, what they're getting in return for the time, and seeing, you know, how things are going. But, you know, once they get to the end of a block of hours, you know, all of a sudden, you know, hey, you know, it's all fun until, you know, somebody gets a stick in the eye, right? And now suddenly they're looking at how can they avoid maybe buying another block, or what can they, you know, they start getting a little more educated about what they can get in 80 hours.
Yeah. What I was saying by CSM there, which is Danny is asking, is the CSM billable to the customer? Not really. Not that it would show up. It would be like cost of the hour block. It'd be, you know, part of your extracted cost. So that was never, you know, seen or itemized out from a customer perspective.
So one of the things we are seeing that we're going to make a change is the block of hours was universal. You could use that for basically anything you wanted, right? If it's customization, training, whatever, anything. Well, I've got a few customers now have been kind of buying the Microsoft story about citizen developer, this, that, and the other, that have been wanting to use this time, which is discounted time, to have us teach them how to build stuff. And, you know, particularly we had one here recently that wanted to use the time to have us teach them how to use Kingsway Soft. Right. Instead of, you know, just consuming our time to have us do it for them. Mm-hmm. And so I'm making a decision to remove those kinds of services from that block of hours, because you shouldn't be able to pay me a discounted rate to have me teach you how to get rid of me. Yeah. I got no problem if you want to get rid of me, if you want to learn yourself and you want us to teach you, I got no problem with that, but not at that discounted rate. That was for us to do the work, knowing this is going to continue. But if instead I'm going to spend this first block of time teaching you everything you need to know, where you don't ever have to buy any more time from me, well, that should be worth some more money. Yeah. Makes sense. We're looking at separating that out and doing that a little differently. And if somebody wants to learn how to be a developer, fine, we'll teach you how to be a developer, but not at that same rate that we would to develop for you. Yeah. Nick is saying there about doing the discovery workshops and things like that, or diagnostics that returned into projects. And that's definitely a model that works. I remember that back in the SMB space, where you would go in and, you know, you would do a bit of analyze people's networks and see whether, you know, you could put in a server and an exchange and shit like that. And you'd go through and you'd do a whole bunch of, you know, how many desktops, network connect, all that kind of stuff. And then you would go, hey, here's where you could be operating better, managing your IT spend, et cetera, better. And Microsoft used to provide some really nice spreadsheets and reporting and stuff like that. And of course, you would say, listen, Mr. Customer, we'll do this. The normal cost is $2,500 or whatever.
to do this piece of work. But if you then go ahead with it, we'll discount that off your price for the forward work. If you don't go ahead, here's the bill for the work.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
The way we've handled that, Nick, is we have smaller blocks of hours. So I think we have a 10, 20, 40, and 80-hour block. And generally, when you get into development project, they're buying successive 80-hour blocks. But we've got these 10 and 20-hour blocks. They're a higher rate. But that's really kind of what they're for, is doing like discovery sort of stuff. The one thing you don't do is you don't do discovery for free.
Yeah.
Unless you do it the way you're talking about, is I'll refund you this if you do the project. But
yeah.
There's a whole bunch of partners out there doing free consulting because they're happy to jump on and do all this analysis and jump into someone's Salesforce implementation, figure out everything it's going to take to migrate, give the customer a price. Customer's like, well, thanks for the info, but we're either going to go with another partner or not do it. And they just wasted a whole bunch of time.
Yeah.
And I still see that happening.
I burnt myself chronically working in Hong Kong on that model. So in Hong Kong, you would go in, I would do a full tailored, demo of how I remember one that's popping into my mind, a travel agency over there, very successful, had some crappy bespoke software. We showed end to end how it could be built in Dynamics.
Gave them the blueprint.
Right.
Yep.
It worked away. Our translator came back to us and said, oh yeah, thanks for that. One of the guys in that meeting knows exactly what they need to do. Now they're going with Dynamics, but we'll do it ourselves. Thank you very much.
Yep. Now there's plenty of people that are that are reaching out all the time. Hey, can I pick your brain about a couple of things? And really, that's all they want to do is pick your brain and have you explain some things to them they don't understand, so they can go back to trying to figure out how to do it themselves. And that might be fine for Microsoft, but as a partner who generates revenue from performing services for customers, there's no upside to us. I mean, I'm not a charity, I'm not a charity organization. There's no upside to us for free explaining to customers things they need to know where they don't need us. I mean, as I just said, we're planning on coming up with a separate service for that that's at crazy rates.
Yeah.
If you want help to get rid of us, you pay a crazy rate for the time to do that.
Yeah, so true. Well, it's our time's up, man. As I said at the start here, we've got a short show this week. I've got to bounce, and we need to set it up, Steve, so that you could carry on. Pardon me? It
feels weird being so short.
I know, right? It feels short and snappy, and we've had a heap of chatter today, which is great. Maybe that's a model. Everyone engages quickly and often rather than draw it out over an hour.
For now on, we'll tell everybody it's a half an hour, but it's really going to be an hour because they start chatting them and they think they're under the gun. Oh, poor Frank there thought he was not going to be able to get all his stuff in, so he loaded us up here with his. I just looking at next. We talked about that, Ken, but unfortunately this was set up on Mark's side and he needs his computer for this next call, so there isn't any way for me to continue this one with someone else. But
something will get sorted for 2021.
We will see you guys all next week.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. It's been awesome.